Hi, it's me, Gage, and I'm here to react to the Rappters Who'd Win and Why Ghost Rider vs. Spawn. Now, before I start the video, this is going to be two parts because it's an extremely long video. But who do I think is going to win going into this? I think Spawn, just because he's killed God and Satan from what I've heard. But I do think Ghost Rider does have some things going for him, like the penance stare. Anyway, let's go, and if it's too loud, I'm going to lower the volume, because I'm trying to learn from the last time I messed up.
Hey guys, my name is the Raptor, and welcome to the mid-season finale of Season 7 of Who'd Win and Why. And this time, I am very excited, because we got Ghost Rider going up against Spawn. Now, I know some of you guys in the comments are also very excited for it. I know I'm very excited for it. Some of you may think that there's an obvious answer, but you know what? Listen to what I have to say, and who knows, maybe I'll surprise you with what I have to say. Another thing before I start this video is that I am going to be saying something important, or at least I feel it's important, at the end of this video, so make sure you guys stay until the very end, especially if you watch this this channel regularly. There's some things you may want to know. So yeah, just go to the end, make sure that you catch what I have to say. But without further ado, let's get right into this battle. So, who'd win and why? Let's find out. So first, I am going to talk about Ghost Rider. Now, Ghost Rider, we're going to be using the Johnny Blaze version of Ghost Rider. He's the most popular, and I believe the first one. So yeah, let's get right into it. So when it comes to this guy's strength is actually pretty strong. He might be stronger than you think. He has been shown lifting up to like 25 tons in the past before, which is very impressive when you actually think about that. Although, depending on the circumstance, his strength may actually rise. So the top strength of this guy is actually pretty uncalculable. But yeah, 25 tons, we've seen him at least lift that, and even that alone is still very impressive. When it comes to this guy's speed, he has been said to have superhuman speed and agility. I haven't seen him do a lot of flips or like running fast or anything like that in the past before. So his speed isn't like anything like so grand or anything like that, though he does have his motorcycle, which can go at incredible speeds, which I'll talk about later in the video. Though keep in mind that the motorcycle is probably more so used for transportation. I'm sure there are many times where he's been able to use his motorcycle effectively in combat, though I'm sure that for most times in combat he'd be more comfortable just on the ground on his feet. Maybe I'm wrong, but the point is, yeah, so he has his motorcycle. I'll talk about that later in the video. When it comes to this guy's durability and stamina, oh boy, here's what I have to say for that. So this guy's been able to survive like many hits and many like extreme falls without being really phased at all. He's been able to fight the Hulk and take many hits from the Hulk, which is very impressive. And he's actually had his whole skull head, like his head, completely destroyed and regrew it back just like that. A good rule of thumb for Ghost Rider is that if you don't use a holy weapon against him, like a holy weapon forged from heaven against him, he is basically like physically untouchable and immortal. Like seriously, this guy has survived so many crazy things that really no one should be able to survive, like that head destroying thing. And yeah, and on top of all of that, his stamina is actually like almost limitless, practically limitless, because his body, the demon body, does not produce fatigue toxins. So he can basically fight indefinitely as long as he wants. And on top of all of that, he does have a healing factor, like on top of all of this. He does, he would really only use this if someone used a holy weapon against him. But even if they did do like a fatal injury to him, like really like slash him across the chest or something, he would be able to heal it pretty instantly. So man, it's gonna be really hard to kill this guy. But yeah, that's pretty much where the durability, stamina, and healing stuff comes into play. When it comes to his fighting ability, he's not the greatest fighter because he doesn't really have that much formal training. I don't believe he's had any formal training in the past. But for someone that doesn't have any formal training, he's actually a very impressive fighter. He wouldn't be as good as someone like Captain America, who has been trained in fighting many times before, in like many different martial arts. But for someone who hasn't had any formal training, he's actually very impressive when it comes to fighting. And now let's talk about his abilities that he has. So obviously, Ghost Rider has this thing called the penance stare. And if you don't know what that is, more or less, to keep it brief, essentially what it is that it's a stare that he uses that when he stares into someone, basically it inflicts inflicts all the pain that they've caused on other people onto that one person all at once, and it essentially burns the soul from within. So that's pretty dang dark, if you ask me, but it is effective, and it is definitely something that he could use if he's finding himself in trouble, you know, like, oh, let me just stare into your eyes, and, you know, your soul is burned. So yeah, there's definitely that. But here are some powers that, like some other powers, so some of them you might not even know about. Ghost Rider does have limited control over his size. He can actually grow in size to a certain extent. He also has limited dimensional travel, which I think is pretty cool, and as most of you will probably know, he has generation and control over Hellfire. Hellfire is more of like a mystical-like fire that Ghost Rider has control over. Essentially, he can shoot it from his eyes or his mouth, you know, like breathe fire, and he can also, you know, shoot it from his hands, and he can even channel it into his other weapons and equipment that he has, which is actually something I find so awesome and actually pretty original in my opinion. Maybe it's not that original, but you know, I just find that really cool. And I'll talk more about his equipment right now. So obviously, as I mentioned before, he has his motorcycle, and his motorcycle he can actually create entirely out of Hellfire just like that. The motorcycle can go at incredible speed, much faster than Ghost Rider on foot can, although he does have interdimensional travel, but that's more of like going across dimensions, not really speed fighting or anything like that. You guys know what I mean. But anyway, so yeah, it can also defy the laws of physics, as it can go up and down walls and buildings, so there's really nothing stopping this motorcycle, and obviously the tires are made completely out of fire, so you do not want to get hit by it. So yeah, there's obviously that he can use in combat if he wants to. What other equipment does he have? He also has a single barrel shotgun, which he can use as a regular shotgun, but he can also channel Hellfire through it, as I mentioned before. But why would you want to use a shotgun when you have a chain that can also be set on Hellfire, that can extend and cut through nearly anything? And you know, Ghost Rider recognizes this too, because as we all know, the chain is his weapon of choice. That's the thing that he generally uses when he's on foot, assuming he doesn't just use his fist. But yeah, sometimes he likes to keep his opponents at a distance, even though pain doesn't really, it's not really a threat to him. But yeah, it can extend in length, cut through nearly anything, nearly everything. So yeah, that's something good that he has. You know, it's a good weapon. Sorry for that. Anyway, for the weaknesses for Ghost Rider, the main things I think, like, he's not the smartest fighter, but that doesn't mean he's dumb either. I think the main thing for Ghost Rider, even though he doesn't really have any exploitable weaknesses when you first look at him, is that generally Johnny Blaze is in control of the Ghost Rider body, although sometimes he will lose control or just lose focus, and Zarathos, which is the demon half of Ghost Rider, I believe that's what it is, Zarathos, he will take a turn fighting, and Johnny takes more of like a backseat type role, so he has some influence, but not a lot. Really, it's up to Zarathos at that point, and that would mean that, you know, he doesn't have Johnny's fighting prowess, because, you know, it's not Johnny controlling the physical body anymore. But, you know, that's really the main weakness I can think of, and that's a pretty small weakness if you ask me. Overall, this guy is like a half-human, half-demon that, you know, is extremely powerful, has extremely powerful abilities, extremely powerful weapons, and is practically almost completely immortal. So trust me, you do not want to get on this guy's bad side, especially if you have sinned, because that penance stare will put you through hell. I'm sorry. Anyway, so yeah, that's it for Ghost Rider. Let's move on to Spawn. Now, before I start with Spawn, I just want to say that Spawn has a lot of abilities, and I mean a lot of them. And I'm going to try to mention as much as I can, but if I do forget to mention like a really obvious one or something like that, keep in mind I don't know everything about Spawn or really Ghost Rider, but you know, I'm not all too familiar with Spawn. But if there's something obvious that I forget, don't assume that I just don't know it. It's probably just because I forgot to mention it. I probably still know it anyway, because I know most of his main abilities. So if I do say something, if I do forget to say something that's like obvious, I probably already know about it. I just forgot to say it here, because you know, when you're just doing this all in one take, it's hard to remember everything. But yeah, so let's move on to Spawn. So Spawn, he, you know, let me actually go up into his backstory first. So I believe his name is Francis Simmons, and he was like one of the best soldiers that the United States had to offer, but I think his boss, I think it was his boss that killed him, and he went to hell, and essentially he made a deal with a demon lord from hell that he would see his wife again if he became captain of one of hell's armies or something along the lines of that. However, he was reborn into a hell spawn, which is not really what Francis was looking for. However, that's not completely bad, because Spawn being reborn has a lot of abilities, a lot of really cool abilities. he's extremely versatile, and I'll get more into that later. But first, let's start with the basics. So he has superhuman strength, speed, agility, and durability. To add on to the speed portion of it, he has a cape, which allows him to glide. He can also fly and can teleport, which, is like instant. So if he needs to get somewhere quickly, bam, he can just teleport. And when it comes to the durability section, first, actually, let me talk about the suit. So I believe this suit is actually, it has a name. I think it's called Letha of the... Okay, I think that's it. I might be mixing up a word or two or something like that there. But I believe it's Letha of the 7th house of K, something like that. And it's a symbiote. It has a mind of its own. It can actually, fight for Spawn while Spawn is focusing on other parts of the battlefield. So it's like two minds working together. So that's pretty cool, in my opinion. So yeah, symbiote kind of like Venom type thing, although Spawn is nothing like Venom, when you look at the grand scheme of things. So yeah, what the suit can do is that it can also, I believe almost send out chains, almost like an unlimited supply of chains, which can be used as a defensive mechanism, for defending against things. They can almost they're fast enough to block bullets, I believe. So it's pretty quick. But they can also be used as an offensive thing, as they're strong enough to break through solid brick. So yeah, you don't want to be in front of that if they're coming for you. Sorry, that was weird.
Really
but anyway, so yeah, there's that. And then I believe the suit and himself, for that matter, can feed off of the evil energy of his opponents or whatever, something like that. So that's definitely something that can depend on the opponent that they're fighting. And the feeding of that energy actually heals him and allows him to, just gain more stamina all around. He also, I believe the suit can also shapeshift and can give him weapons such as an axe or maybe even a sword or guns or something like that. Really, it's dependent on just the limits of Francis's imagination. So yeah, that's definitely something handy. That's a very versatile ability that the suit grants him. And yeah, that's basically what the suit does. When it comes to Francis himself, the durability of his Hellspawn form, which is his form now, after he was reborn, he is extremely hard to kill. And just like Ghost Rider, he can only be killed by a holy weapon forged in heaven. However, it's actually even more hard to kill him. It's actually harder to kill him than Ghost Rider because he needs to be decapitated by said holy weapon. So yeah, it's really hard to kill this guy. And while he doesn't have a healing factor, he does have that whole feeding off of energy thing. So if he is in trouble, he can just feed off of any evil energy. Him, something like that. I don't really know. I don't get paid enough for this. Anyway, so yeah, so that's the whole thing about Spawn. His almost immortality. I say almost because it's not complete. So that's essentially what Spawn's immortality looks like. Now let's move on to what else he can do. So he has his being in the army before, or the military.
I'm gonna stop the first part right here. I'll record the second part tonight when things are a little bit calmer and more quiet. That way there's no interruptions on the second part. So this is gonna be part 1. I'm gonna upload part 2 when I can. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow morning. But it'll be up at least by tomorrow. Part 2, that is.